That if believing in God without proof is irrational, why is ignoring infinite stakes even more irrational? Think about that for a second. You've probably been told your whole life that faith is blind, a leap into darkness, wishful thinking for people who can't handle reality. And maybe you nod along, thinking, yeah, I need evidence. I am rational. I don't do fairy tales. But here's what nobody told you. There's a mathematician from the 1600s who thought you were making a catastrophic error. Not because faith is provable. He knew it wasn't. But because refusing to even investigate when infinite consequences are on the table is, according to cold hard logic, the most irrational thing you could possibly do. His name was Blaise Pascal. And before you think, oh great, another religious philosopher trying to manipulate me into church. Wait, Pascal invented probability theory. He built the first mechanical calculator. He discovered atmospheric pressure. This man spoke the language of pure mathematics, and he used that same mathematical precision to construct what might be the most controversial argument in the history of philosophy. Pascal's wager isn't what you think it is. It's not believe or go to hell. It's not emotional manipulation wrapped in pseudologic. It's something far more disturbing to both religious people and atheists alike. It's a claim that if you're truly rational, you cannot afford to remain indifferent about God. You know how you wear a seatbelt even though you'll probably never have a serious accident? How you buy insurance even though your house probably won't burn down? How you save for retirement even though you might die young? Pascal says the question of God works exactly the same way, except the stakes are infinitely higher. And here's what makes this uncomfortable. He might be right. Not because he proved God exists, but because he proved something else entirely. That being too rational for religion might be the least rational position of all. Are you ready to have your brain twisted into a pretzel? Because that's what Pascal does best. If you ever felt caught between needing evidence and sensing that something transcendent matters, if you dismiss religion as irrational but felt uneasy about living as if nothing ultimate exists, you're exactly where Pascal started. He understood both the scientist's demand for proof and the human soul's hunger for meaning. He refused to abandon either. In this episode, you're going to discover the actual logic of Pascal's wager. Not the strawman version people love to attack, but what he really argued. You'll understand why a genius mathematician thought probability theory applied to God. You'll see why this argument revolutionized philosophy. And most importantly, you'll discover what this means for how you actually live your life starting tomorrow. Because Pascal wasn't playing intellectual games. He was trying to save you from the costliest mistake possible. If you want to explore more revolutionary thinkers who challenged everything you thought you knew, subscribe to this channel where we discover the wisdom that transforms lives. Before we dive into the wager itself, you need to understand something crucial. Pascal wasn't a philosopher who dabbled in math. He was a mathematician who stumbled into the deepest questions of existence, and it changed everything. Picture Paris, 1654. Pascal is 31 years old and already famous. He's invented a mechanical calculator called the Pascaline, the first digital calculator in history. He's discovered why barometers work, proving that air's weight in the sky isn't infinite. With Pierre de Fermat, he's literally creating probability theory from scratch, figuring out the mathematics of chance and risk. This man thought in numbers. When he looked at the world, he saw patterns, probabilities, ratios. Nothing vague, nothing mystical, just cold, hard logic. Then one November night, everything changed. Pascal was riding in a horse-drawn carriage when the horses bolted. The carriage hurtled toward the edge of a bridge over the Seine River. At the last possible second, the carriage stopped, teetering on the edge. Pascal stared into the abyss literally, and something broke open inside him. He had what he called his night of fire, a mystical experience so overwhelming that he wrote it down on a piece of parchment and sewed it into the lining of his coat. He carried it next to his heart for the rest of his life. It started, fire, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, now the philosophers and the scholars. You know what fascinates me most about this? Pascal didn't abandon his mathematical mind after this experience. He did the opposite. He thought, if facing death made everything crystal clear to me, how do I help people who haven't faced death yet? How do I make the urgency I feel make rational sense of others? That's where the wager was born, not in abstract speculation, but in the desperate question, how do I convince people that infinite stakes demand attention without needing them to nearly die first? Notice how this works in reality. You probably make dozens of probabilistic decisions every day without thinking about it. You check the weather before leaving the house. You lock your door even though you'll probably never get robbed. You look both ways before crossing even though cars usually stop. These are all wagers. You're calculating. What's the likelihood? What's the cost of being wrong? What's the cost of being safe? Pascal realized something radical. We already live by probabilistic thinking. We just refuse to apply it to the biggest question of all. Why? Not because the logic doesn't work, but because we're scared of where the logic leads. Here comes a really interesting part. Pascal's intellectual context was perfect for this argument. He lived in aristocratic France, where gambling was everywhere. The nobles were constantly betting on cards, dice, horse races. They understood odds viscerally. They knew that smart betting wasn't about certainty. It was about expected value. So Pascal spoke their language. He said, in effect, you bet on dice games where the stakes are gold coins. Why won't you bet on the question where the stakes are infinite? But, and this is crucial, he wasn't just talking to gambling nobles. He was establishing a principle that works for anyone, anywhere. When consequences are infinite, even tiny probabilities matter enormously. Imagine the scene for a moment. You're about to board a plane. Someone credible tells you, there's a 1% chance this plane will crash. You get on that plane? Of course not. 1% is way too high when the stakes are your life. Now imagine someone tells you, there's a 1% chance God exists and whether you seek him determines your eternal destiny. Pascal asks, why are you getting on that plane? Wait till you see how he constructs the actual argument. It's even more airtight than you think. Okay, let's build Pascal's argument step by step, exactly as he thought through it. This is where it gets mathematically beautiful and philosophically devastating. First, you must wager. Pascal says you can't sit this one out. You're already betting whether you realize it or not. If you live as though God doesn't exist, pursuing only finite goods, making decisions based only on this life, you've already wagered no. Indifference is still a wager. Think about that. You know what's brilliant here? He's removed neutrality as an option. The atheist thinks, I'm just withholding judgment until I see evidence. Pascal responds, no, you're living a particular way right now. That way of living stakes everything on God's non-existence. How is that neutral? Second, reason cannot decide with certainty. Pascal freely admits, you cannot prove God exists or doesn't exist through pure logic. The evidence is ambiguous. Both positions are reasonable. If certainty were possible, we wouldn't need to wager. We'd just follow the proof. This is crucial because it's where Pascal differs from other religious arguments. He's not saying, I can prove God, now you must believe. He's saying, given that we can't prove it either way, how should a rational person proceed? Third, calculate the expected value. Here's where the mathematics comes in. Pascal says, look at the possible outcomes. Option A, you wager God exists, you seek faith, live accordingly. If you're right, infinite gain, eternal life, meaning communion with God. If you're wrong, finite loss, you spent time and effort on something that wasn't true. Option B, you wager God doesn't exist, you live for this life only. If you're right, finite gain, you lived as you please without wasting time on religion. If you're wrong, infinite loss, you miss eternal life, lose ultimate meaning. Let me show you something amazing. Even if you think the probability of God existing is incredibly tiny, say 1 in a million, the math still favors wagering yes. Why? Because infinity times any non-zero probability equals infinity. The expected value of option A is infinity minus something finite, which equals still infinity. Meanwhile, the expected value of option B is negative infinity plus something finite, which equals still negative infinity. You with me? As long as infinite stakes are even possible, and you can't prove they're impossible, rationality demands you take them seriously. Now, I thought that was manipulative the first time I heard it too. It sounds like Pascal's holding a cosmic gun to your head. Believe or else. But that's not what he's doing at all. Watch this carefully. Pascal isn't saying the wager produces belief automatically, like putting a coin in a slot machine and getting faith out. He's saying the wager makes investigation rational. It removes your intellectual excuse for ignoring the question. Imagine you're deciding whether to invest time learning a new skill, say, coding. You think, what's the probability this pays off? What's the time investment? What's the potential upside? If the potential upside is huge, great career, financial freedom, and the probability is even moderate, you invest the time. You don't wait until you're certain it'll work. You never learn anything that way. Same logic here. Pascal's saying, spiritual investigation is finite costs, your time, some intellectual effort, lifestyle adjustments, and potentially infinite payoff. Therefore, investigation is rational regardless of how certain you are. Notice how this transforms the question. It's not, do you believe in God right this second? It's, are you willing to honestly investigate whether God exists, to read, pray, join a community, give a real shot? That's radically different. The first is impossible to force. The second is just rational decision-making. Here comes a really interesting part. Pascal knew exactly what you're thinking right now. Okay, fine, investigation is rational, but I still can't just choose to believe. Belief isn't a light switch. He had an answer for that too, and it's going to make you uncomfortable. Pascal's response to I can't just choose to believe is one of the most psychologically brilliant and controversial things he ever wrote. He said, act as if you believe, and belief will follow. Wait! Don't click away yet. This isn't as manipulative as it sounds. Let me explain what he actually meant. Pascal distinguished between two kinds of reasons. Reasons of the mind and reasons of the heart. The mind deals with logic, evidence, proofs. The heart deals with intuition, experience, love, trust. Both are legitimate ways of knowing. They just operate differently. The wager addresses your mind. It gives you a rational reason to begin. But belief itself, real belief, not just intellectual assent, happens in the heart. And the heart doesn't respond to logical arguments. It responds to lived experience. So Pascal's path looks like this. First, the wager convinces your mind that investigation is rational. You think, okay, I can't ignore infinite stakes. That's just bad math. Second, you begin spiritual practices even though you don't fully believe yet. You pray, read scripture, join a community, live as if God exists. Third, through practice, your heart changes. You begin to experience what you were only calculating before. Prayer stops feeling like talking to yourself. Scripture starts speaking to your actual life. Community provides genuine connection. Belief emerges organically. Fourth, belief becomes authentic because it's grounded in experience, not just calculation. You now believe from the inside, not because a math equation told you to. Now, if your alarm bells are ringing, I get it. This sounds like brainwashing. Just keep going through the motions, and eventually you'll trick yourself into believing. But Pascal would say you got it backward. You're already going through the motions of unbelief, living as though only finite things matter, distracting yourself from ultimate questions, making choices based on the assumption God doesn't exist. You've habituated yourself into that stance without even realizing it. All he's suggesting is, try habituating yourself the other way and see what happens. Not permanently, just as an honest experiment. Think about it like this. Imagine someone who's never fallen in love telling you love is just biochemistry, dopamine and oxytocin. You could show them all the logical arguments for why love is real and meaningful, but until they experience it, they won't really get it. Pascal is saying faith works similarly. The wager is like someone explaining to you why love might be worth pursuing even though you've never felt it. Look, the potential upside is enormous. Deep connection, meaning partnership. The downside of trying is minimal. Some time invested in dating vulnerability. Why not give a real shot instead of dismissing it? Because you can't prove it beforehand. That's not manipulation. That's rational exploration of important human experiences. If this argument is challenging everything you thought about faith and reason, hit like so more people discover Pascal's revolutionary thinking. And comment below, mind blown, if you're seeing this totally differently now. Let me show you something fascinating about American resistance to this argument. You probably heard the objection. Faith shouldn't need intellectual justification. Just trust God. That's the anti-intellectual religious position. Faith as blind leap. Pascal would say that's actually disrespectful to the mind God gave you. If God made you rational, why would he demand you abandon reason to reach him? On the flip side, you've got the hyper-rational secular position. I only believe what I can prove scientifically. Pascal would say that's equally limiting. You can't prove scientifically that your mother loves you, that beauty matters, that justice is real. But you live as if these things are true because you recognize that some truths require different kinds of evidence. The wager threads this needle perfectly. It respects your rationality enough to give you a logical argument, while acknowledging that reason alone won't get you to belief. Both mind and heart are necessary. But here's where Pascal goes even deeper, into territory that's going to make you squirm. Pascal had this concept he called divertissement, distraction, and his analysis of it will make you want to throw your phone across the room. He argued that humans have one core existential problem. We're caught between infinity and nothingness. We can conceive of infinite meaning, eternal life, cosmic significance, but we're trapped in finite, mortal, fragile bodies that will die and disappear. That tension is unbearable. So what do? We distract ourselves. Constantly. We fill every moment with entertainment, work, pleasure, socializing. Anything to avoid sitting alone with the terror of our own mortality and insignificance. Notice something. Pascal wrote this in 1654. No smartphones, no Netflix, no social media. Yet he diagnosed the exact mechanism that dominates modern life. You know how you immediately grab your phone the moment you're bored? How you can't sit in silence for 5 minutes without feeling anxious? How you work 80-hour weeks or binge watch shows or scroll endlessly? Anything to avoid being alone with your thoughts. Pascal saw that coming 370 years ago. He said, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. But here's what makes this devastating in the context of the wager. Distraction isn't just a bad habit. It's your strategy for avoiding the very question the wager raises. If you seriously investigated whether God exists, if you prayed, read, reflected, sought truth honestly, you'd have to stop distracting yourself. You'd have to face the uncomfortable questions. What if my life is oriented toward the wrong things? What if I'm wasting time on trivia while infinity passes me by? What if I'm mortal and this matters? Most people, Pascal observed, would rather do literally anything than face those questions. They'll say the wager is manipulative, or faith can't be calculated, or religion is for weak people. Anything to avoid the actual investigation that rationality demands. Imagine this scene for a moment. You're at the doctor's office. The doctor says, "We found something concerning on your scan. We need to run more tests to see if it's cancer." You can respond two ways. Response A, "That sounds terrifying and I don't want to think about it, so I'm just going to pretend you never said that and go back to my normal life." Response B, "This is terrifying, but ignoring it won't make it go away. Let's run the tests." Everyone would choose response B, right? because the stakes are life or death. Pascal is saying the question of God has infinitely higher stakes than cancer, yet you're choosing response A. Why? Not because the logic doesn't work, but because you're scared of what the answer might require of you. Let me show you how this plays out in real American life right now. You got people working insane hours building companies worth billions. Elon Musk, tech founders, Wall Street traders. When asked why, they'll say something about impact or innovation or changing the world. Pascal would say, they're distracting themselves from a fundamental question of meaning through the acceptable distraction of productivity. Our culture applauds this. We call them visionaries, ambitious, successful. But if those same people spend even 10% of that energy investigating ultimate truth, praying, studying theology, examining their souls, culture would call them weird, excessive, fanatical. Why is 100-hour work weeks building an app considered sane, but 10 hours a week seeking God considered crazy? Because productivity distracts us from existential questions. Spirituality forces us to face them. Here's the thing. Pascal isn't condemning work or success or enjoyment. He's diagnosing the pathology, using finite things to avoid infinite questions. Working hard to provide for your family, while seeking God, beautiful. Working obsessively to avoid thinking about whether your life has ultimate meaning, that's the problem. And the most uncomfortable truth, most of us are doing the second thing without realizing it. Wait till you see how this connects to the paradox at the heart of being human. Here's where Pascal gets really profound and really uncomfortable. He says humans exist in this impossible paradox. We are simultaneously wretched and great, and both are completely true. We're wretched because we're mortal, fallible, anxious, weak. We'll die. We'll be forgotten. We can't even control our own thoughts or desires reliably. We're specks of dust in an incomprehensibly vast universe. But we're also great because we can think, question, seek truth, love, create meaning, yearn for God. We're the only beings who can contemplate infinity even though we're finite. We're thinking reads, fragile but conscious, neither pure optimism. Humans are amazing, nor pure pessimism. Humans are garbage, captures reality. We're both, always. And this paradox, Pascal argues, makes sense only if we're created beings who've fallen from something greater, but still bear traces of our origin. We're simultaneously worse and better than we should be, which is exactly what Christianity claims. Let me show you why this matters for the wager. When people reject Christianity, they usually do it from one of two positions. Position one, I'm basically good. I don't need salvation. This ignores a wretchedness, our genuine moral failures, selfishness, capacity for evil, inability to be who we want to be. Pascal would say, be honest about your interior life for 5 minutes. You know you're not basically good. You're morally compromised and you know it. Position two, I'm worthless trash. There's no hope. This ignores a greatness, our capacity for love, truth-seeking, sacrifice, beauty, transcendence. Pascal would say, then why are you even bothering to articulate that hopelessness? Why do you care about truth enough to declare yourself worthless? Christianity, Pascal argues, is the only worldview that takes both aspects seriously. It says, yes, you're wretched, you're sinful, broken, dying, and yes, you're great. You're made in God's image, capable of communion with infinite truth and love. Both are true. Notice how this transforms the wager. It's not just bet on God because infinity. It's bet on God because it's the only framework that makes sense of what you already know about yourself, that you're simultaneously worse and better than you pretend. Think about your own life for a second. You've had moments of genuine greatness, times you loved selflessly, pursued truth courageously, created something beautiful, sacrificed for someone else. You've also had moments of deep wretchedness, times you betrayed your values, hurt people you love, pursued pleasure over meaning, lied to yourself. You know both are real. The question is, which worldview actually account for both? Secular optimism, the self-help, your amazing mindset, can't explain the wretchedness. Why you keep failing? Why can't you just be the person you want to be? Secular pessimism, nihilism, existentialism can't explain the greatness. If we're just meaningless atoms, why do beauty, love, and truth feel objectively real and infinitely valuable? Pascal saying, Christianity actually fits the data of human experience. We're fallen image bearers. That explains both the grandeur and the misery. And here's the kicker. You can't investigate this honestly while distracted. You have to sit with the paradox. You have to stop running from the wretchedness through achievement or pleasure. You have to stop denying the greatness through cynicism or irony. You have to be still. Face yourself. Ask, what am I really? That's terrifying. Because if you're honest, you might discover Pascal is right. You're a walking contradiction that makes sense only if you're made for something infinite but currently separated from it. And once you see that, the wager stops being an abstract argument. It becomes urgent. If there's even a chance I'm made for infinite communion with God, and I'm currently living for finite things, I'm committing cosmic malpractice. Here's what I find most fascinating. Pascal isn't asking you to abandon your intelligence. He's asking you to use it fully. To be as rational about infinite questions as you are about car insurance. Let me show you what this means practically, starting tomorrow. So here we are. You came in asking about Pascal's wager, and we've discovered something much bigger than a clever argument about God. We've uncovered a revolutionary claim. That rationality, properly understood, doesn't oppose faith, it demands it. Not blind faith, but honest investigation when infinite stakes are on the table. Pascal didn't prove God exists. He proved something arguably more important. That treating the question as unimportant is intellectually indefensible. If you're truly rational, if you actually calculate expected value the way you do with every other major life decision, you cannot afford indifference about God. And the genius of the wager isn't just in its logic. It's in how Pascal anticipated every objection, every dodge, every defense mechanism we'd use to avoid its implications. Faith can't be calculated. He responds, I'm not calculating faith. I'm calculating whether investigation is rational. I can't just choose to believe. He responds, start with practice. Let experience transform your heart. This sounds manipulative. He responds, I'm just applying God the same probabilistic thinking you use for everything else. Why the special pleading? Most devastating of all, Pascal diagnosed our distraction epidemic 370 years before smartphones existed. He saw that humans will do anything, achieve anything, consume anything, pursue anything, to avoid sitting quietly with ultimate questions. And he was right. You know he was right. How many times today have you grabbed your phone to avoid being alone with your thoughts? How many years have you postponed serious reflection on whether your life is oriented toward what actually matters? The wager isn't asking you to resolve all doubts immediately. It's asking you to be as rational about infinity as you are about insurance, to take the investigation as seriously as the stakes demand. That's what's revolutionary. Not that Pascal proved God, but that he proved indifference is irrational. You can't sit this one out. You're already wagering. The only question is whether you're wagering intelligently or by default. Now you see the question in a completely different way. It's not, can I prove God exists? It's, given that I can't prove it either way, and the stakes might be infinite, what does rationality demand I do? Pascal's answer is clear. Investigate. Honestly, starting now. From now on, when you find yourself dismissing ultimate questions as unprovable or unknowable, you'll remember that Pascal taught us. Unprovability doesn't equal unimportance. You don't need certainty to act rationally. You need expected value calculation. In the coming weeks, try this. Apply Pascal's framework to your actual life decisions. When you're about to scroll social media for the 100th time, ask yourself, what am I avoiding right now? What question am I distracting myself from? When you catch yourself saying, "I'll think about spiritual stuff later when I have time," ask, would I say the same thing about a medical diagnosis? About a financial crisis? Why do I treat infinite stakes as lower priority than finite ones? Here's your practical challenge for the next 7 days. Day 1 to 2. Notice when you distract yourself. Don't judge it, just observe. What are you avoiding? Day 3 to 4. Spend 15 minutes in complete silence. No phone, no music, no podcast. Just sit with your thoughts. What comes up? Day 5 to 7. Read something spiritual. Doesn't have to be Christian. Could be Psalms, could be philosophy, could be theology. Give the investigation a real chance. You don't need to come out of this week believing. You just need to admit that Pascal's logic works. If infinite matters even possibly, ignoring it is bad math. And once you admit that investigation isn't optional, it's rational necessity. You won't be perfect. Pascal never promised perfection. He promised that honest seeking changes everything. The question isn't whether you'll arrive at certainty. It's whether you'll start the journey that rationality demands. There's a phrase from Pascal I can't forget. The heart has its reasons which reason knows nothing of. Do you feel the weight of that truth? Do you recognize how it changes everything? He's not saying reason doesn't matter. He spent his whole life in mathematics. He's saying reason alone can't get you to the deepest truths. You need both mind and heart, logic and experience, calculation and openness. The wager addresses your mind. It removes your intellectual excuse. It says, you can't claim to be too rational for religion, but belief itself, real belief, requires you to open your heart through practice, experience, community, prayer. Imagine your life 6 months after taking Pascal seriously. You won't be perfect. Pascal never promised perfection, but you'll be more honest with yourself. You'll see through the distractions you use to avoid ultimate questions. You'll recognize that being too rational for faith was actually a failure of rationality. And when you face the big decisions, career, relationships, purpose, meaning, you'll know exactly what you're wagering on and why. This channel exists to discover together the wisdom of thinkers like Pascal, people who face the same eternal questions you and I face today, and refuse to settle for easy answers. Subscribe if you want to continue this journey of honest intellectual exploration. In the next video, we'll discover how another revolutionary thinker challenged everything we think we know about human nature and society. See you there. And meanwhile, may you have the courage to investigate what rationality demands, and the wisdom to let both mind and heart guide you toward truth.